Welcome to the Teen Life Podcast, where we research teen culture so you can focus on connection. I'm Karlie Duke, and I am back with Tobin Hodges and Caleb Hatchett. And today we have another, just full slate. Oh, yeah. We're like really packing it in. So we're going to cover Snapchat with Caleb's Corner. We're also going to hit on some teen hairstyles and what that means, especially for schools. And then we're going to wrap up with a question, which I feel like we get this one quite a bit at Teen Life, and especially the podcast and youth ministers. Yeah, probably get this all the time, which is, when should teens get their first cell phone? So we're going to dive into the world of
spoiler alert, we do not have the answer, but we're going to talk about it.
I might, Tobin, you don't know.
Walkie-talkie.
But speaking of phones, Caleb, why don't you kick us off with some Snapchat updates?
Yeah, it's been a bit since I think we talked about this on the podcast. So Snapchat, of course, is always trying to stay up to date and ahead of the curve just to get people to continue to use that app. And so, there's been a lot of changes. For those of you who don't know what Snapchat is, I think it would fall under the category of a messaging app. But it really is a lot more than that. It's kind of an amalgamation. So it started out with just being able to send pictures back and forth, and you could, type. And then the whole thing is that picture, you get one look at it, and then it's gone. It's disappeared, which technically, as people have discovered, isn't technically true. It's, I'm sure, somewhere out there. But it disappears. You can now replay it if you missed it or anything like that. And then they added to where you can actually just message, and even those will disappear after, I think, 24 hours. You can elect to save those messages in a group chat, things like that. And then you can do stories. I think Snapchat was the first thing to do a story, before Instagram, before Facebook, Snapchat.
But it's the same thing. It goes after.
It goes out 24 hours.
Yeah. Did I say a year? A day?
A year. There's also, I know, news and different companies will put up updates that you can scroll through, almost like a story. And then now they've gotten into Spotlight, which is basically Snapchat's version of Reels and TikTok.
Love it. Of course they did.
Of course, yes. Because who doesn't? What app doesn't have that right now? So some new updates that I think are interesting, and this one's been around for a while, but they have this thing called Live Maps.
I hate this. I hate this so much.
Yeah, it's wild. So you can. It's hard to describe, but basically in your Snapchat app, it's on the far left. You can zoom out, and it'll just show you a map of the area, and you can track your friends in it. I think only your friends you can see. You can also, and this is important to note, you can turn off if that can track you or not, and you can enter ghost mode, which means that no one can really track you.
Which in my mind would be smart.
Which, yeah.
Who wants to be, because it's kind of like Find My Friends, but within Snapchat, and they're little people, right?
They're little, it's your Bitmoji, and you can track it, you can see where your friends are. It's also interesting too, because there's hot spots that'll show you where people are posting Snapchat stories a lot. And so there's certain zones that you can just click anywhere on a map and it will pull up someone's story. You don't even have to be friends with them. It'll just pull it up.
Interesting.
But one of the things that they've added that I saw was new and is actually, I think, interesting, is that you can discover places on the maps. And so it'll show you restaurants, fun activities to do, things like that. And it'll show you if people have posted stories there. And so you can see kind of what you're getting into before you go, almost like a different version of Yelp.
That's cool.
I assume.
Okay.
But that's really interesting. And yeah, again, you can elect to have ghost mode on to where people can't track you. I don't know if that's automatically enabled when you download the app.
Definitely
or not. Yeah. I would assume it's just.
You automatically, I think, see your location.
You'd be surprised how many teens I've talked to lately that share their location on Find My iPhone and stuff. That's something they do. And I
think we did an episode on that. I'll have to post a link if we do.
I have so many. I'm guilty of that. I have 30 people on there.
That's wild. I have my son for obvious reasons, and then I have my wife, which I don't even know why I do that. It's just more of is she still at work? Okay, no, I don't have to, because if she's at work, I'm not going to bother her.
Yeah.
You know?
You need to know if Jody gets kidnapped. You need to know where she is,
I mean,
Tobin.
I'll be honest with you. When
Karlie
she
just got very
when
serious.
she goes, well, no, for really, when she goes running and stuff, like there are times that like I just make sure that she's still in the neighborhood. 'Cause I'm maniacally stupid like that, I guess. But
I'm not against sharing location. I just think your students need to be careful, especially if on Snapchat
Yeah.
they're friends with people they maybe don't know in real life or don't know well,
Yes.
but someone can track where
Gosh.
they are. That's a conversation. to
Yeah,
have with your
because
teen.
Find My Friends, you have to send it and you have to approve, hey, I'm sending you a location, where Snapchat's just like, hey, oops, your friends can track you and we necessarily didn't tell you about it.
how many
Yes.
juvenile relationships have taken a hit because of this setting? Would be my question.
Ooh,
I'm
tough.
sure
Yes.
quite a many.
Yes.
So,
One of the other big things with Snapchat is like streaks is a big thing. We were talking off air before we recorded of like, you know,
is that still a thing?
it still is. I don't think it's
It was a
as
thing
much.
a while back. Like I was telling y'all off the air, but just for the listener, like I went to a couple of camps one summer, and where we didn't have cell phone reception, and the kids told me they literally left their phone with their parents so they could still keep streaks alive with whoever they needed to keep streaks alive with. And I'm like, there is no world that 15, 16-year-old me would have left my cell phone with my mother just to send
Yeah.
Snapchats. Like it was wild to me that people cared about that much. I've never been a Snapchat person. Like I always felt like I was too old to be in that game, and so I never did it. But that's my main takeaway from Snapchat is that how crazy people were about that.
And it's basically it's formed whenever you send a Snapchat to someone and they respond. Like you have to do that like once a day, and then it forms a streak.
Right.
So if you forget to Snapchat that person, the streak is broken. I knew friends with like 1,000-day streaks.
That's unreal.
Crazy. And I don't use Snapchat. I used it more when I was in high school. I don't use it as much anymore. I have one group chat with high school friends that I use still. But right now, one of the big things that Snapchat's added is the AI chat bot. That interesting is like at the very top of your friends list. And you can't change it. It will always be at the top. And
They want you to see it.
Snapchat promotes it as like, I think it's powered by ChatGPT, but like someone to talk to, advice on like camping or it's
That's sad that we're in a world that like if you're lonely, you go talk to an AI chatbot instead of real people. But sure.
The only way you can remove this AI chatbot or move it down your friends list is to subscribe to Snapchat Plus, which released earlier this year. $3.99 a month, and this is my personal bias for a whole lot of nothing. Yeah, like I said, you can move or remove the Snapchat AI chatbot. You can set a custom Snapchat story expiration length, so you can set your Snapchat story for an hour. It'll only be up for an hour, all the way up to a week. You get a custom badge. You can boost your story, I think, like once a week, which basically puts your story at all of your friends.
Like first.
Yeah, it's like first on all of your friends' like Snapchat story thing. You can get an extra snap replay. Like if you can replay a Snapchat an extra time. You can also which this to me defeats the whole purpose of a Snapchat streak, but you can like renew or fix a Snapchat streak that's broken like 6 times a month. So
for those people who go somewhere where they don't have cell service, now you don't have to leave your phone with your mom.
There you go. And then there's a lot more stuff that to me is not worth $3.99. And this to me, this is the last new thing, but I think it's really important to say is that they've added a family center, which is an in-app tool that lets parents see who their teenage children are interacting with on the platform. Basically, you would have to download the app as the parent. You both have to have it. You would go into settings, and in settings, you scroll down to privacy controls, and then there's a thing for family center. You could also just go to the Snapchat website and go to the family center, and then it'll tell you how to get it set up. But it lets you as the parent view any new friends added by your child, and then they're going to update this hopefully in the future. And Snapchat says that Family Center is designed to reflect the way that parents engage with their teens in the real world, where parents usually know who their teens are friends with and when they are hanging out, but don't eavesdrop on their private conversations.
And that was one of the biggest like fears about Snapchat when it first came out was how do I keep track of what my teen is doing?
Yeah.
And I've said before, I had two kids that were in high school a while back, and they were dating and they were texting each other in Snapchat, and I was like, why are y'all doing that? Just use iMessage. And they weren't doing anything wrong. They were like just normal kids, really good kids, didn't do anything wrong, but their whole point was, well, I mean, our parents can't read this. And we're not, and I said, well, are you saying something inappropriate? Like, well, no, but I just don't want my parents to know, like my conversations. And like part of me was like, well, that's weird and it's sketchy. But the other part of me was like, man, I didn't like, that's no different than me closing the door whenever I'm calling my girlfriend when I was in high school because I don't want her to hear. And so, I think it's good that they're adding this because like it is important for a parent to know who someone is talking to.
Yeah,
I kind of go back and forth on the knowing what the conversation is, but as a parent of a teenager myself, but like I said, the biggest bugaboo about Snapchat in the beginning was you send a text and then it goes away forever and you have no clue what it said or who they're talking to, and so like them kind of finding that happy medium, I think, is smart.
Yeah, so basically the point of it is you can see who they're talking to, but not the exact conversation. Snapchat also has a bunch of videos on their YouTube on just like parent monitoring and how to do that, well with your teen. That's interesting if you want to check that out. I think as long as this app is around, there will always be those pros and cons and conversation to be had when it comes to teens and parents.
I have said for a while, and that maybe we need to have a conspiracy theory corner with Tobin. That's like,
yes,
I feel like I go in this every once in a while.
A new segment.
I've said for a while that I feel like, whenever we're older and there's someone our age or younger running for office somewhere, that someone's going to figure out how to like hack into Snapchat's archive database of all of these quote unquote disappearing pictures. Like, and it's gonna derail someone's political or like, acting career or something like that. But so I mean, thinking about trends that I don't understand, because Snapchat is definitely one of them. We're going to move on to Tobin's trend today and talk about some teen hairstyles. So before I get into some things that are trending, what is y'all's, Karlie, I'm going to start with you. What is the worst haircut you've ever had?
Ooh.
I didn't prep you for this.
You didn't. Here's the deal. I didn't necessarily know that I had bad haircuts, but man, when I hit puberty, my hair just... Yeah, my dad named it. He called it Mufasa for a while. So, I mean, it was huge, like curly, frizzy, and there was only so much you could do with it. And like, so looking back on those like middle school years, that was a tough time for teen Karlie because there was no straightening it. Even if you did, it would still curl up. It was big and poofy. And that's a tough time.
Caleb?
Dude, so my dad used to, like when I think this was like 8th or 9th, it was probably 9th grade at this point. But like football season, I used to go buzz cut because it felt great in a football helmet. And my head's so big that like I didn't need the extra hair taking up space in the helmet. But my dad would always, like a 2 or 3 buzz cut, and he would do it himself. And one time he's going and he's trying to get around the ears, and he goes like with a 1 and kind of Caleb. I'm like, what? And he's like, I took a little too much off. He's like, there's a couple options, right? I'm like,
no, there's not. There's one option. Yeah.
And he's like, we could do the 1 all around, or you could just have this streak in your hair. I'm like, I hadn't looked at it. I'm like, okay, let's just do the 1. Let's just go for it. He's like halfway through. My mother walks out and says, Chris. And it was like, I go and look, and it was bald. Like I looked like there's this big streak on the right side of my head that is just bald, and I'm like freaking out. So he takes me to Great Clips, of course, to save this haircut, as if the people at Great Clips, and they did.
Hair goes back, but I don't agree with him. There's one option at that point, and it's to go to the 1 all the way around.
Yeah.
Like
Dude, yeah, that's what I thought too, but it was like bald. So I ended up like with the fade, thanks to the people at Great Clips.
Well, that's good. I'm mad at Great Clips for charging me for a senior haircut the other day, but that's neither here nor there. That's a whole nother podcast. I'm talking about this. So mine, I think I've shared this with you before. When I was a freshman in high school, I decided that this would be a good time to get myself bleached tips because that was a big deal at the time.
I love it.
Didn't know how to do it. And so I just took the bleach and just like basically painted my head the day before church directory photos. And I'm showing them the picture right now. I look like an NSYNC reject.
You do.
Like it's definitely really bad. So we're talking about this because I'm about to just completely trash teens for their trending hairstyles. But just know that we're also morons and did the same thing when we were your age. So right now, if you have not noticed, for some reason, in boys, mullets have made a return.
They have.
I hate this. Is a one hairstyle that I just wish would have died with the 80s.
It is really, it's cool for them, and it's definitely the in hairstyle, and I do not understand it. The mullet is really back, and it's not just it's all kinds of mullets. Like it's like kind of like a mohawk mullet.
It's like a faux hawk type thing.
Yeah, or like, just straight up like, I mean, I've seen some wild ones these last couple of months.
We have a senior boy who gave their dog a mullet.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that way you would fit in, be cool.
Well, I feel like you're seeing like them wearing hats, and the hat, it just looks like they have long hair in the back, and then they take it off and it's short. But like that curling around the hat hairstyle is back in. That I feel like was cool when I was. Yeah, Caleb's got a flow kind of working.
Yeah, I wish I had hair like that still. But the perm fronts I don't know what this is called, but it's kind of like where someone gets like a curly perm. This is gonna be so mean, so I'm so sorry, but it reminds me of a poodle. Just like a little like ball on the top of a poodle's head, like that. For some reason, that's popular.
Yes.
And then the swoops are real big. My own son has the emo Bieber swoop. That's been
around.
That's been around, but it seems like that's kind of big right now too. With girls, obviously Taylor bangs or curtain bangs are really big right now. Natural curls and natural hair, which I think is very awesome, is making a comeback in like heatless curl. Basically, girls seem to be doing the healthy thing of we want to do what makes us look good, but also not ruin our hair by
they're taking back. For a while, it was like you will straighten your hair within an inch of its life, or you will always have to have it curled. And I feel
dyed.
Like, yes, and I feel like it's kind of coming back to like, let's go natural and like the curly girl era is in, and you can find a million TikToks on how to curl your hair right, or do the heatless curl trend overnight, or crimped hair and braids. That's very in right now.
Yeah, I think that people have realized that, not people, sorry, women have realized that taking care of your hair is actually important. And, especially in a woman's case, like if this was Karlie was getting a haircut from your dad, like, and he did something like that, that's way more devastating than it is for a guy who can, kind of be a little bit more flexible and that kind of stuff. And so it's good that I think that girls are kind of taking care and also realizing they can be more natural and not have to have everything be so, and if you dye your hair or have, straight hair, whatever, do your thing. But like, I like it. I think it's positive that we're seeing more natural hair stuff coming from the girl side of things. We're talking about that today also because of the Crown Act. The Crown Act has been something that's been instituted this year and kind of made the news for a couple of reasons, for good reasons and for not so great reasons lately. But first, it was created in 2019 by Dove, what are they, lotion company originally?
Hair care, beauty. It's a beauty brand.
Yeah, Dove. I mean, you've heard of Dove before. They do soap, hair care stuff, and they do the Dove Awards and stuff. So they do more than just
chocolate. Is that the same company that is the Dove chocolate? They just do it all.
I'm not sure. Maybe. I don't know. But,
someone is screaming at us as they listen.
Yeah, they do a lot of things. But they partnered with what's called the Crown Coalition and created the Crown Act. It was actually originally started in California with a senator there. But basically, they did some research data in 2019, and it started off as a black women thing, where 80% of black women reported having to change their hair to fit into the workplace. Black women are 1.5 times more likely to be sent home from the workplace because of their hair, and 100% of black elementary school girls in majority white schools report experiencing hair discrimination, that they experienced the discrimination by the age of 10.
Wow.
So because of that data and because of that need that we needed in schools in Texas, this Crown Act came into effect on September 1st, 2023. So before I talk about more about how that affects schools, the Texas statute says that any dress or grooming policy adopted by a school district, quote, may not discriminate against a hair texture or protective hairstyle commonly or historically associated with race. I have some hot opinions about this that I think I was ahead of my time a little bit, I think. I have forever wondered why in schools. So we're talking about from the school side, why we are so worried about what kids' hairs style looked like. And this is beyond just race for me, but obviously the racial side of this is much more important. But I've never really understood, short of a guy coming in with, spiked up 20 feet high spikes and just wildly colored hair. I don't really understand why we've been so worried about that. In my high school, we had a rule that your hair couldn't touch your shoulders if you were a guy.
Yeah.
And that bummed me out because I wanted to grow my hair out, and I did eventually. And I think it kind of loosened as I was in high school. But what are your thoughts on just in general schools and hair and grooming?
That's why I first grew my hair out. I grew my hair out like freshman, sophomore year of college because I could never do it when I was in high school. And so, yeah, it's always been interesting. Again, we went to a private school, but we couldn't even grow beards, which for some guys that couldn't grow facial hair, it was pretty patchy, myself included, probably doing us a favor. But there were some guys that could grow a full beard. They couldn't show that off. It's terrible.
Yeah. Well, I think when we were in high school, it was it couldn't touch eyebrows.
Yeah.
It couldn't go below your ear or touch your collar. And I'm with you. There are some people that, I don't know. It's just, I think that it was always in the name of it's distracting. But you're right. I feel unless your hair is touching me, sitting behind you because it's that bizarre, that's not distracting to me.
Yeah.
As a teenager, I feel that was an adult excuse to try to control teenagers when I don't know how it hurts to let them use their individuality. And like you said, especially in the context of race, of that's just, it's different. You can't treat it the same. And I feel especially for students who go to majority white schools or who the administration is white, they're not thinking that way, and it's not fair.
Well, and, it's not fair. So let's talk about the racial side of it. Is one, everybody's hair is different, no matter what race you are. And so there are some hairstyles that if you have it written that it needs to be this way, some hairstyles don't fit into that mold, especially if you're coming from a different culture or whatever. And also if the culture is, I'm going to, wear my hair long because I'm, I in this area, there's a huge Tongan population. They grow their hair out as part of their culture is just to grow their hair out. Or if I need to have, braids or dreads or curls or whatever, that is part of their culture. Why do we have to worry about that? We have protected for a while, this cultural side of if a student needs to wear a hijab to school or something. But to me, hair also plays into that of and it kind of falls into the whole, I don't know, there are bigger things to worry about in my opinion than this kind of stuff. But I've always felt we've kind of overreacted to the way that hair color and stuff like that. And I think it's kind of cool though, because even when I started in the workforce, you had a certain dress and hairstyle, and you had to hide tattoos and all that kind of stuff. And some of that stuff seems to be kind of being more hey, let's let people have their individuality.
Yeah.
And I think that that's also bleeding into schools as well. So, but yeah, I've never understood why we picked this battle in schools.
It definitely is a battle that I'm glad to see, hopefully, going out. Like Tobin said, there are, I don't know that we have time to get into it today, but I'll post an article. There are some already things that are coming out that is pushing back against the Crown Act, I feel from schools. And so that's something to watch. But we wanted you to be aware of this new act. But as we get ready for Christmas, I think something on the minds of a lot of parents is this the year that I get my kid a cell phone, especially if it's for the very first time? Or maybe is this the year that I get them a smartphone, because that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
And I just want to say off the bat, there is no right age to get a student a cell phone. Wait until 8th is a very popular pledge that I've seen for years of all these parents we're going to make the pledge that they don't get a cell phone until 8th grade. But I think that's becoming less practical as technology is needed in school, as they start sports or other things where they need to be able to communicate with their parents of when you need to come get me. And so I just think I didn't get a cell phone until I was in 8th grade. But as I'm looking now, I'm man, this is a different world that our students are growing up in.
Even with me, it's interesting you didn't get one until 8th. I think I was 6th or 7th, but I got a flip phone, didn't get a smartphone until past then. But yeah, I needed to tell mom and dad when to come pick me up from practice and stuff.
Right, exactly. Recent survey data suggests that 42% of U.S. kids have a phone by age 10, And by age 14, the smartphone ownership climbs to 91%. And so by 14, statistically, most students have a smartphone. But I saw that some experts say that developmental readiness is more important than age. So are they able to have boundaries? Can they have complex thoughts? Are they showing empathy? Do they have a good sense of right and wrong? That kind of stuff is more important than how old they are. Basically, is your student mature enough? And you as a parent are the only one who can kind of decide that. I will say, I think it's important to talk about expectations before you get a cell phone. I'm going to post in the show notes maybe some questions to start this conversation about like, hey, what do you need a cell phone for? Maybe like, let's start there. But I want to talk about options too of what's out there because I don't know. Well, I'll throw this out to y'all. What are your thoughts on should a sixth grader have access to a smartphone that has all the bells and whistles?
I mean,
and what does that look like?
Okay, you're asking that question, but if you went today to go shop for a phone, there's not many options outside of a smartphone. And that was kind of my point what I was going to make is that obviously we're in 3 different time zones of generations, but if we still had the options of, hey, you're going to get the Nokia phone that only plays Snake, and
I had that phone.
That was my first phone, or you're going to get a flip phone that can text and call, but it doesn't have internet. But I mean, if you I don't know what the exact data is, but there was one time when I was looking up data and it was it was over 80% of cell phone users in America are iPhone users. And so again, we're talking about this from the, teens perspective of, do you want your kid to be that weirdo that has the phone that can only call mommy and daddy, or I shouldn't say weirdo. That was not nice. But they're going to be called that in school, or do you want to just kind of go ahead and teach them how to properly use it? It really is just a matter of like Karlie was saying, what the kid is ready for. We were thrust into this as a parent of a 14-year-old now. My kid was in 6th grade when he got his first real cell phone because he had to stay home for school during that year of COVID while me and my wife had to go teach. And so I was like, now again, in this day and age, we don't have a landline. I haven't had a landline in my house since I was in high school. And so that kind of thrust us into this. And I think my kid handled it pretty well, but we did have a contract. We talked about how these are the expectations. And then at any point, if I ask for your phone, you're going to hand it over to me without any hesitation, that kind of stuff. And I think he handled it okay. I don't think he was fully ready for it, but I didn't really have a choice. And so, but when we were looking at phones, it was basically, do you want this really fancy iPhone or do you want this less fancy iPhone? There was not really any other options.
I did look up some options and I'll post a link I think I got this from Wait Until 8th. But I feel like more options are coming out, but I will say up front, some of them are expensive. Like you're going to pay a lot of money for a phone that doesn't do a whole lot. And so as a parent, there are benefits to that. But when I'm looking at this, I'm like, I'm going to pay $100 for a phone that only texts 10 people.
You're right.
That seems like a lot. But smartwatches, I know some people especially for maybe early middle school, when you need the function to call or text, but you don't want them to have access to social media. I think this is a different conversation if you have a 16-year-old.
I know a lot of 6th graders, 7th graders that have iPod touches still and can still do iMessage. Because I know, again, and I think it depends, like you said, where they are developmentally, even where you are as a family, there's different needs where your student may need a phone, whereas, you're in a place as a family and schedule-wise where they don't necessarily need one as much. But I know students who would be like, I would rather not have a phone than not have an iPhone.
Right.
And so I think so much of it is social and, wanting to fit in to having that. And so it is interesting, just the balance of when to have it, even their input on do you want the phone? Do you want an iPhone?
Right, exactly. But I will say, I know students that will do smartwatches first. And you can get the Apple smartwatch that has the cellular data on it so they can call or text from their phone. There's the Gab watch, the Gizmo watch. There's a watch called TikTok. TikTok? T-I-C-K.
You sound like Go-Go Gadgets.
T-A-L-K. So there are watches, but I will say, I know schools are banning smartwatches sometimes in class because they have so many capabilities. So they probably have to leave it in their backpack or leave it at home.
or they ban them on like testing days for sure.
Sure.
I know even teachers aren't supposed to be wearing smartwatches on testing days and stuff like that. And so,
interesting.
yeah, I think that though, and that's a whole nother. We could like, from a school's perspective. We just talked about how schools are picking battles with hair that they shouldn't be. Sometimes I feel like they do the same thing with devices too. Of if you just lean into the skid, like it's gonna be a lot better for you than if you try to fight it the whole time. But yeah, I think in a school's perspective, whether it's a phone or a watch, they're gonna have guidelines and restrictions on it. Like, and if you're a parent, you don't want your kid to have, like even if they're wearing the watch, like you're not going to encouraging them to be using it during the day anyway. And so, if you're looking at it from I need them to have a mode of contact, then them putting it in the backpack when they are safe with a teacher is perfectly fine.
Sure.
So
I think too, there's even ways with the smartphone, iPhone, to put enough restrictions on it to where it almost does function like a flip phone. And like, I don't know if we've done an episode on, talking about restrictions and cell phone stuff like that, but
yeah, I was looking, I thought we had, but I know we've talked about like app restrictions, but we probably do need to re-talk about cell phone restrictions, especially if your student has a smartphone. But if you are looking for something without a smartphone, there are things out there like the Gab phone. Pinwheel I saw was a very popular one, but one's basically where it limits how many people they can talk to. Maybe they can only text. There are some that have like very specific apps that you can add as a parent. They can't add them themselves, but if you want to add them, you can, or they can stream music but can't do other things like social media. So there are some things out there that you can do, but this is a conversation you need to be having with your teenager. Are they ready? What does that look like? And you're right, some of them might go, if it's not an iPhone, I don't want it. And so that's a different conversation as well. But we just wanted to give you some resources to have this conversation. Like I said, if you want to go to our show notes, I'm going to add some more questions maybe to start this conversation if you have a younger teenager, and maybe check back for a future episode where we talk about, now that your teen has a phone, what do you do with it? But for this week, that's a wrap. And if you love the Teen Life Podcast, we hope that you subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Maybe share it with a friend, because we're just here to help you connect, because we believe that teenagers are not a problem to be solved.